Female boxer feared for life during brutal 46-second fight. This is a biological male with the disorder of sexual development. You can see that there's something going on with these people. You're going to the effing circus every time you see anything gay these days. Would they ever have a bunch of Republican-esque, masculine cowboy dudes? I'm a fat, Jewish, queer, lesbian, and I'm really proud. MrBeast's right hand girl. He, and yes, I use the correct pronoun, told me that he got fully aroused when he secretly stole my female clothes and put them on. 100% a fetish.
How friggin' dare you? How dare you? Get out. Actually, no, don't get out. Come down here. See how that shit goes.
Like, this is literally threatening. This is the grossest TikTok.
I swear to God, white cis gay guys are so annoying. Oh, I miss the days of Freddie Mercury and David Bowie.
All right, Governor. I don't sound like that.
It's not. It's scary as shit being a non-binary person in today's society. I mean, the walking out and living your life as you are with the threat of people attacking you physically, verbally, and being barred from businesses.
Barred from businesses? What, because you have a shaved head? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Jack Jewell Podcast. That's right. Thank you for returning, or if you are new, welcome to my podcast. We are going to talk about some crazy stories today, and I have a lot I want to cover, so let's dive right in. The Olympics. There's been a lot of controversy going on there, and of course, it's all around LGBT issues, right? Number one is female boxer feared for life during brutal 46-second fight against opponent who failed gender test. Before the Olympics started, it was announced that two individuals in the female category would be competing despite having previously failed sex tests. Bit of a weird word, but failed the test to show that they did not have essentially what is a male competitive advantage, right? So this fight was a bit of a disaster. The poor Italian player, she only lasted 45 seconds before getting hit in the face and saying that she could no longer continue and had to forfeit the match. She has stated that this was because of her safety, and I mean, just watching it is sort of horrible. With these kind of things, you can literally just use your two eyes. You know, people try and get so nuanced about this. And yes, this situation is a little bit more nuanced than the trans issue. But to me, anyway, a novice who doesn't really know much about boxing, so maybe I'm chatting out of my ass, but to me, just looking at this, it's pretty obvious that this somehow isn't adding up. And the player is absolutely devastated. If you think about training your whole life to play at the Olympics and then having your chance taken away from you due to unfairness, right? Now, when I first saw this, and I saw the headline before the Olympics started saying two people are entering the female category even though they failed sex tests in the past. And I assumed, okay, these are trans women, so males identifying as women, probably of the autogynephilic subtype, the kind that are attracted to women. Because let's be honest, there is not a single trans woman kicking other women's asses in sports who is not attracted to women and is not an AGP. That doesn't mean all AGPs are bad, but you don't see the gay ones do this, right? Anyway, I had my ears pricked for this because I knew something would happen with these two players. And when I first saw this situation, I was fully convinced that this person was, you know, straight up just male, saying, I'm a woman now and I'm going to kick this Italian's ass in boxing. And this Algerian player, Amane Khelif, I think that's how you say it. So I am going to use the pronoun she here, and I'll explain why, because I did tweet about this. And I said, this man, how can he be so entitled? I'm so sick of seeing this, etc. You obviously know that I don't approve of trans women playing against females in sports. Unequivocally, no. Protect female sports, right? And thank you to Daniel, one of my loyal followers, who did reply and say, you know, this is an intersex person. So I didn't actually realize this at first, because when you do look at Imane, you know, she does essentially look like a man who is probably taking a bit of estrogen, you know, popping a bit of E on the weekends, and is quite flat-chested, broad shoulders, you know, hard jawline. And I just, without questioning, thought, okay, this is another Leah Thomas situation. However, she does actually have a disorder of sexual development, right? So with intersex, and intersex is such a bad term because it implies that someone can be actually between the sexes, and that's not the case. All of us go either down a developmental pathway to produce eggs or sperm, and for the vast, vast majority of us, 99% of us or more, that pathway goes uninterrupted and you end up male or female. Now, classically male or female, I should add. Now, for a small percentage of people, there is something wrong chromosomally, hormonally, and that causes the body to develop slightly differently. So the classic intersex signs were someone who would have ambiguous genitalia or whose chromosomal pattern would not match with their phenotype. So if you had, for example, XY chromosomes, which Amane does, but externally you appear female, there's some sort of disorder of sexual development going on there. Now, what the trans activists have done, and Judith Butler and Anne Foster Sterling, crazy gender academics, is all you need to know. They decided, okay, we're going to lump all these other disorders into intersex too. So now we're going to have Klinefelter's and Turner syndrome. We can talk about that maybe in a video essay sometime because I've learned a lot about it. But all you need to know is there's some conditions which are very, very much only affecting males, and there's some sort of chromosomal issue. Think of it sort of like someone with Down syndrome, right? They're missing a chromosome, I think that is. There's some sort of chromosomal thing going on. You don't say that they're now intersex. So the classic version of intersex is very much seems to be what this player has, in that she has XY chromosomes, has an unusually high amount of testosterone for a female, but does have externally female genitalia. So that's just what I've been able to find. So it's not confirmed exactly which disorder of sexual development condition this person suffers from. There are many, but they do all have names. I mean, Caster Semenya is quite a well-known middle distance runner, and she had the same issue in that I think it's like 5 alpha reductase, essentially had XY chromosomes. So biologically, technically going down the developmental pathway to be male. So you could say a male with a disorder of sexual development. And her body was not able to fully activate the testosterone, I think. But she also had the external female genitals. Now, that's not to say that maybe the genitals are slightly ambiguous. I don't know. And sorry for the science lesson, but I guess from what I understand, and I'm no expert, this is a biological male with the disorder of sexual development, I think. Now, I may not be correct. If any of you know more, or you're a scientist, or you're a know-it-all, comment below, let me know. But I don't think she's officially released, this is exactly what my condition is. And I guess the issue we have here is that for people with DSDs, for her, she was actually born, looked female, and then was raised as a girl and socialized as a girl. So I don't think it's fair to say, this man beating a woman in sports, this entitled male. And we did have, people condemning her straight away on Twitter. So J.K. Rowling said, could any picture sum up this new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distance of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life ambitions he's just shattered. Now, J.K. Rowling, I am normally with you 100% on everything. In this case, I think it was a little bit unjustified and kind, to be honest, because there is a difference between a man literally his whole life being completely masculine and male and competing mediocrely as a professional athlete, and then just saying, oh, I'm a woman, and then, doing a Leah Thomas situation on it. And this person who does have an intersex condition was born and raised female, socialized as female, clearly found her way into boxing. She's Algerian. I mean, I've heard that there are some people who actually scout out people with DSDs. I mean, kind of female identifying people with DSDs because they know they'll have a competitive advantage. Now, I don't know this, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know how much the intersex athlete has been exploited in her life. I don't know how other sporting bodies have necessarily treated her as a female. Maybe in the vast majority of cases, she's had no issues. But given that she was previously disqualified for failing sex tests, and given that this is boxing, and given that she clearly has virilization, which means the masculinization of the body. It's utter madness that they allowed this to go ahead, because forget about just males being better. You know, it'd be different if it was just tennis or swimming and you say, this is completely unfair, you're going to kick her ass, right? In this case, it's actually a major safety concern. You know, girls, and you'll have seen, actually coming off my ex podcast, so I'm going to keep that one quiet. But I was speaking to someone who was explaining to me that girls also have weaker bones. They have softer skulls. So it's not just that she'll beat the other athlete, it's that the other athlete is more privy to injury. And that's a big issue. So do I think it's fair how people have responded? Like another one, Riley Gaines here, men don't belong in women's sports. Also, Riley Gaines, absolutely love her. She is a complete hero. I filmed a video essay months ago about Riley Gaines, and it's called Why Riley Gaines Will Save Women's Sports. And I just still haven't got around to editing it. And now I'm thinking, is it kind of old news? I do react in a section to it to trans athletes debating and sounding like absolute nutters. I mean, if you like the sound of it and you'd like to see it, then let me know and I might still edit it. Such a shame in this world of content creation. But do I think it was fair for her to compete? Probably, most likely no. I mean, I'm not an expert on DSDs. And it poses the question for this very small minority of people with a disorder of sexual development, how do we accommodate for them in society? Because, you know, you can, on one hand, you can say, oh, it's not fair just because they have this condition. It shouldn't mean that they can never compete. I do get that. But then also, life isn't fair and not every lane is for you, I guess. It's difficult because I feel bad for those people if they do have an athletic ability. But then again, do they excel so well in athleticism because of their masculine advantage? So ultimately, I think if other sporting bodies disqualified them, then why the Olympics? Like, that's even more important. And we see the same thing with this other athlete. And yes, the arms are like slightly thinner, but then again, boxers are all really lightweight, aren't they? This issue looks like a straight up guy. The other one looks a bit more androgynous, right? You guys might have listened to this already. I was on a podcast with, very random story actually, because it's a podcast called Crossing Faiths, and the guy that hosts it is Muslim, and he wanted to speak to me about like queer theory and the neo-religion within LGBT. And then he did another episode of me talking about this. And he's lovely, by the way. I'm glad he reached out. But he was saying, oh, you know so much about this, and like it's really hard for me to collect my thoughts on it. And I was like, honestly, don't worry about having to have all these argument points. Like, all you need to do is see it with your own two eyes. And that is sort of it, you know? You can see that there's something going on with these people. And you can compare it, I think, to a female taking testosterone and doping. But in this case, it's more they have the natural doping within their system. And then this person also beat another female boxer who was distraught. So it doesn't look good, right? But I think the fact that you've seen all these people jumping on it and calling it a trans matter tells us a few things. So it tells us, one, we should pause before we make quick judgments like that. Also, when you have a whole group of people that have not been listened to, them being gender critical women or most women, all the girls who've had to share a locker room with Aaliyah Thomas and see her dick, her dick, quotations. If you ignore a whole bunch of people perpetually, they're going to get more and more angry. They're going to get more hypervigilant, more hyperly sensitive, and they will jump to conclusions. That is a natural thing. They don't trust the government. They don't trust sporting bodies. They don't trust medical institutions. So why should they trust anything that's happening? And I am sympathetic for it. Interested to see how this develops. And I don't know how many rounds there are in boxing. I tried a boxing class once and it was not for me. Like, putting your hands in those used gloves, gross. And just being so up and close, personal with a stranger, I don't like it. Before we move on, if you are not subscribed and you are enjoying the Jack Jewell Podcast, please hit that button. I want as many people to find my podcast and channel as possible. Give me a thumbs up if you're liking it. And if you're feeling very generous, leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or rate me on Spotify. Okay, guys, let's talk about the opening ceremony. Again, I have kind of mixed opinions on this because everyone's going absolutely nuts. But of course, what is any performance, any ceremony, any event these days in the West that does not have a queer moment? And queer, you will notice, tell me if you notice this, because it's not just specific to LGBT stuff and drag. I feel like everything is just sort of queer now. You know, you go and see a play or a musical or any sort of performance, and they have this sort of queer, gender bendy, kind of kinky aesthetic on. It's very much kind of in fashion, and who knows why, because it's really effing annoying and self-indulgent. But before we even get to the Last Supper controversy, this performance was very lackluster. I mean, they look like a bunch of unconventional litters of the rut just kind of smushed together. And someone said, okay, guys, can you just like stand around the table? Yeah, that's fine. They look awkward. What are they even doing? I'm not really here for it. And the strutting up and down the catwalk, the random as hell outfits, the just very random moments of drag mixed in. Forget the whole controversy. I just did not enjoy it. I thought it was stupid. And all of this stuff is just one massive virtue signal, right? It's no longer about, oh, let's make sure we're inclusive. Why don't we get this singer who is actually just really great, and he also happens to be gay, or she happens to be a lesbian, or she happens to be trans? No, we have to make the event specifically as queer as possible, as gender bendy as possible, throw a couple of drag queens in there. And drag is now becoming, it just has to be in everything, right? But there's only one form of representation from the queer community. You know, would they ever have a bunch of Republican-esque, masculine, you know, cowboy dudes? Oh my God, that actually sounded so lame that I just said that. But I think you know what I'm trying to say. Those type of gays, they would not. There's no effing way. It just has to be this complete freak show. It's like you're going to the effing circus every time you see anything gay these days. You know, save it for the nightclub, for God's sake. This is supposed to be mainstream. And across the whole ceremony, you know, I liked it, but everything now, it's like the Eurovision. It's just always trying to be so odd and peculiar. And there's no, and I do like a bit of that. But for some reason, there's just an intuitive sense of when something is genuine and when something is clearly just a virtue signal. Sometimes you can put your finger on it, and sometimes you can just feel it. I sound like I'm describing my gender identity now for you. But, you know, we see this with the morbidly obese woman in the center who does absolutely F all. Had they had an obese woman on who just opened her voice and happened to have the most magnificent operatic voice, that would be different. Because that would be about the voice. That would not be, okay, so yeah, let's get a trans one there, and let's get the kind of skinny gay guy there, who, by the way, the ballet dancer was pretty good. And I kind of was digging the rain. It kind of looked like it was planned, but that must have been stressful for them. But he literally had a ball out at one stage. I didn't notice. But, you know, let's get a couple. Oh, yeah, drag is in. Let's get a couple of drag queens. And then, oh, yeah, what do we not have? Oh, yeah, the morbidly obese. Yeah, fat positivity in the center. At least she gets her day of fame in the center. But honestly, like, her name is Barbara Butch. I'm guessing that's not her real surname. But French DJ files legal complaint after Paris Olympics opening ceremony sparks online abuse. So obviously I do not condone abuse, but, you know, she says that she's suffering an extremely violent campaign of homophobic, anti-Semitic, sexist, grossophobic. What the hell does that mean? Grossophobic? Oh, stigma based on body size. Is that not just fatphobic? Maybe this is the scientific term. Now, if you don't want to promote morbid obesity that will lead you to a death in your 40s in the Olympic ceremony, then I don't really think that that's discrimination. Do you? What kind of message is it sending? Especially when then, you know, an impressionable young girl goes to look at this person. She says that she's fights for fat acceptance, the amount of identities, I'm a fat, Jewish, queer, lesbian, and I'm really proud. Okay, you're clearly collecting the identities, Miss French DJ. And, she says everyone is beautiful, everybody is beautiful. I don't disagree with that, but it doesn't mean that we say, if you're morbidly obese, just don't worry. Nah, just don't bother. I don't think that that's right. But anyway, it was a massive virtue signal for me. And then in regards to the controversy, this is again similar to what I said before, because people are getting fed up of the woke stuff. They're getting fed up of the virtue signaling. They're getting fed up of the trans stuff being shoved down our faces, shoved into schools, down children's throats, shoved up your ass. They're getting sick of it. And then when something like this happens, they see it as another opportunity to say, look, this is what we're sick of. Now you're mocking our religion. Whereas if a lot of other stuff wasn't happening, I would be skeptical of whether this would cause as much outrage. And I genuinely mean that. Now, did it offend me? Not really. I mean, I'm not Christian. And I did just think it was ridiculous. I mean, that blue Smurf, like, what does that have to do? I know it wasn't explicitly gay, but it was very much a LGBTQIA+++, whole they, them virtue signal. And then they needed to top it all off, this stupid Smurf. I don't even care what that's supposed to represent. It looked like a Smurf. This stupid Smurf being revealed from like a table of food, and then having all these weirdos, these circus freaks just standing behind him. It was effing weird. Like, can we bring back just some classic meritocratic talent? Jesus Christ. But, they claim that it was supposed to be depicting a painting called The Feast of Gods, I think it's called. Possibly got wrong on that, but it was supposed to be depicting that. Now, whether it was or not, I don't know, but it doesn't take an idiot to see when you're rehearsing this piece, oh, this kind of looks like The Last Supper. Is this a good idea for us to do this for a global audience supposed to appeal to everyone around the earth? Could people have kind of been a little bit less reactive to it? Yes. We even saw Andrew Tate protesting.
And to sit here and let France mock the country, mock your religion, make fun of every single thing you feel holy. This is the Last Supper.
Similar to before, I don't really blame these people because no one's listening to them, and people are just calling them transphobic when they're saying, keep this away from my kid. I don't appreciate it. So, if you're genderqueer and you're going to go crying home to mommy over this, then boo-hoo. Some of us want to sit down and watch attractive people. We want to sit down and watch talented people. This was not talent, in my opinion. There was a couple of good dance moments, but those young people dancing on the boat, that was insane. Those were talented. Yeah? Something more like that, please. I'm just kind of over it. I mean, these things will just keep occurring. But at least they issued an apology.
Clearly, there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, I think that Thomas Joly really tried to really intend to celebrate community tolerance. That was his word yesterday. And if people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry.
I commend them for that. I have some very exciting news, everyone. If you love my channel and you want to see more and you would like to support the channel, there are now a few ways you can do so. So I have a PayPal link if you want to give a one-time donation. You can hit the join button after you subscribe on YouTube, which will give you several features, including having early access to all my videos and podcasts. Or you can head on to Substack for my membership community. Now, this is very exciting because here you will also receive early access to the videos and podcasts. You will receive the full uncut versions of my videos. And if you knew anything about my video editing, you would see that I have to very sadly edit out all the bits I go a bit too far. I get a little bit too bitchy. I say things that are a little bit too scathing, but if you subscribe to the Substack for a modest amount per month, you will be able to see all of those moments in glory. You can connect with me on the community chat and have your input on future topics and questions I ask my guests, as well as see some articles that I write about, which I don't have as much time to make YouTube videos on, are still very important to me. So if you want to support the channel and make sure I can get as high quality, as many videos as often as possible out to you. See the links in the description. Next up is Ava Tyson, a trans woman. You're probably all aware of this. Was MrBeast's right-hand girl. Chris transitioned over a year ago. And I remember first hearing about this when Blair White on her podcast talked about it. And she had described how he left his wife and kids and that she just didn't think that was right or moral. And this was when I was still maybe not fully where I'm at now in terms of how critical I am of this ideology. But and immediately I was thinking, oh God, that's not fair. I mean, we shouldn't just say only some people should be able to transition and then others, you know, they have to just live in a way that makes them miserable for the rest of their life. Now I get it, right? Because to do that to your wife and kids, and often these men then get all the attention and people assume that actually it's just hardest on them. It takes a special kind of narcissist to do this to your wife and kids and say, I'm now going to live my truth and be a woman. If you watched my last podcast episode with Debbie Hayton, Debbie describes how for all these autogynephilic males who have a sexual attraction to themselves as a woman, them transitioning in midlife is sort of like having a marital affair. And it makes sense, right? And autogynephilia is progressive. So it was very obvious to me from the outset that this is of the AGP type. You know, pretty much every trans woman that's attracted to women is of that type. You know, if you watch my channel, we got that. So to leave your wife and kids over a sexual desire like that, I don't know. I mean, I think that it is very horrible and selfish. Do I think it's a good idea to stay in the marriage and possibly be miserable forever and then bring the two of you down? I don't know. But, you know, if he lived happily as a man before, it's a conflicting situation. But I just wish that these men who have autogynephilia were educated on the fact that that's what they have so that they could avoid getting into marriages. And if they do need to transition to ease dysphoria as a last resort, you know, transition should be a last resort for people after you've tried everything else for a number of years. That's just my opinion. It's not ideal to be taking hormones, cross-sex hormones for life and getting your penis chopped off. But where was I going with that? Yeah, I mean, if you didn't marry and then you ended up transitioning as a last resort, you know, that's fine for me. I know that autogynephiles can experience gender dysphoria, but I also know that a lot of the culture and the sissy hypno porn and the Reddit and the trans ideology is actually developing this proclivity they have, whereas in another society, in another time, they would have probably just lived out their life as a male that had a bit of a fetish in the bedroom or even just thoughts. But that's not what we're seeing now. All these autogynephilic males are being essentially groomed and indoctrinated through this pornography and through obsessing over this idea. And we have that confirmed by his sibling. So she says, he, and yes, I use the correct pronoun, told me that he got fully aroused when he secretly stole my female clothes and put them on. He's deluded and disturbed, and it's 100% a fetish. He's narcissistic, and professionals have told him he needs a full psych evaluation. So narcissism does seem to run at a higher rate in autogynephiles than regular males. At least I think. Maybe not, because I guess you do see a lot of straight males cheat on people, like a lot. So maybe it's actually not different. But I do think that the fact they don't understand this is what they have leads to a whole host of mental health issues. One of them being personality disorders, like narcissism. And it's a good sign of someone who leaves their wife and their kids to live out this fantasy and impose their identity on society, that they are prone to bad behavior. Because I didn't even say what this controversy was at the start, because I'm assuming you all know about it, but, you know, he's found to have history of grooming younger audience members online. And then I read this very compelling and moving thread from Muskina, another trans woman, who said she was sexually assaulted by Ava Tyson, and they met in 2022 before he had even started transitioning. And she has a really long thread. I will try and link it in the description. But essentially what she describes is he lured her in by saying that he could possibly get her on the channel, get her on the YouTube, and then proceeded to, every time they were together, you know, get her to give him oral sex. I know the pronouns are going to annoy all of you. I don't care. But then he would never reciprocate, and it always left her feeling very used. And he treated her abhorrently in terms of being hot and cold, and then her thinking they were in a relationship, but then he would get with someone else. And every time there was a sexual occurrence, she would just pleasure him and he would do nothing to her. I mean, it just shows you that, you know, whatever you want to do, if you want to take the hormones, you want to change your appearance, fine. But the fact that you're like a trans woman and then you're getting another trans woman to suck you off all the time, like that's not something women do, right? Because they don't even have the capability of doing that. So you're not a woman. It's just so ridiculous, the woman's penis. But anyway, R.I.P. Ava Tyson. You are bad luck for the trans community. But I feel like more and more people are going to be outed as AGP like this. I think it's going to be a long time before there's actually more awareness on the complexity of autogynephilia. And I do know it's a big problem. I'm not saying it's an easy solution. It is more problematic and disordered than just a fetish. Some guys don't transition. Some guys don't encroach on women's spaces, and they really suffer. Okay, guys, we're on to reacting to woke TikToks, and this podcast, I have a very special theme for you. It's called TikTokers Who Hate Me.
Human gay male is social events for gay men who reject gender identity ideology.
You massive wrong'un.
I mean, you can just see the utter disgust and hatred behind this woman's eyes before the video even starts. And would you not care to just brush your hair before you get on camera from your basement? Georgina, let's see what you have to say.
How friggin' dare you? How dare you? Can you imagine coming down to Kemp Town here in Brighton and spouting this nonsense? Can you imagine going to Canal Street in Manchester and spouting this nonsense?
Well, does she just think I have time to go frolicking around the UK spouting nonsense? I was interviewing James about his organization, Human Gay Male, which, by the way, I went to last week. It was really fun. So if anyone was there, hey, a lot of people there were already familiar with my channel, which was really cool. We were just talking about it, and she's somehow super offended that this even exists. But no, I'm not going to go to Kemp Town in Brighton because I live in London, bitch. And I'm way too busy.
Where's your community, mate? You're claiming to speak for gay men who are apparently upset that trans men are part of, like, defining themselves as gay men because...
Yes, we're upset that women think they can be gay men. How shocking.
That's obviously how they see themselves because they're men who like other men.
Yeah, so we all see ourselves certain ways, you know. I see myself as extremely hilarious, but a lot of people don't think that. Maybe you guys are one of those people, but I'm not telling you that you have to tell me I'm hilarious. I would just really appreciate it if you did. They can identify as gay men. They're not. They're not.
Like other gay men. But yeah, you might want to have a go at me as someone who's not a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman. Yeah, I'll own that.
I mean, I don't want to play identity politics, but what audacity does Georgina, with her unbrushed hair in her mother's basement, with her box of half-eaten pizza next to her, think she can come on camera and say, how dare you, as a gay man, think that only gay men have penises and that people with vaginas, i.e. women, cannot be gay men? How dare you, part of a community that before my time had to convince society that we weren't perverts and pedophiles simply because we like people of the same sex? How dare you try to protect that? You're gross, Georgina.
I'm middle-aged, I'm white, I'm privileged, just like you lot.
Babes, I really don't think you're privileged. There's a lot more God could have given you than what you're putting out there.
Unlike you lot, I'm deciding not to shit on a minority.
Hello, yes you are. That's exactly what you're effing doing.
And you people make me go...
Look at that face. Ugh. Georgina's just looking me up and down, you know. It looks like she's smelling herself after not showering for 5 days.
Right, seriously, come down to Kent Town. See how that goes down, because you are the tight white t-shirt brigade, as a friend of mine used to say. I used to have a friend at school who was a larger gentleman who didn't feel comfortable in the gay community because he was a larger gentleman, and too many cisgender, white, middle-class gay dudes treated him like he was less than human because he was a larger gentleman.
I think the only one that's less than human here is you, Georgina. How racist and how deeply homophobic and just the most vile person. Why did she call me the tight white t-shirt brigade? Look at the TikTok. Look at the shirt I'm wearing. That's not a t-shirt, first of all. It's not tight. And I didn't say anything about fat gay men. I just said things about the obese woman in the Olympics.
And yeah, I think you're one of them, aren't you, mate?
No. I've already declined your invite to effing Kemp Town.
Shh. Get out. Actually, no, don't get out. Come down here. See how that shit goes.
Like, this is literally threatening. This is the grossest TikTok that I've seen. And yes, it's about me, so that probably amplifies it. But gross in tone, in intention, in words, in appearance, in smell. Everything about it is disgusting. And I'm so sorry, Georgina, that you are so deeply unhappy with yourselves that all you have time to do from your mother's basement after eating your 2 Domino's pizzas is to target random gay men who are trying to defend the fact that only men have penises. And that's a pretty sad existence.
Exclusion as a gay person, that now LGBT is just a trend, that someone...
I swear to God, white cis gay guys are so fucking annoying. Thinking you have, like, a monopoly on being queer, think you have, like, a monopoly on being a victim of, like, homophobia and queerphobia.
Straight in with the racism. Bitch, you're white as well. It doesn't have anything to do with me being white. And I don't have a monopoly over queer because I'm not part of that shit anymore. I'm not queer. I'm just a homosexual. But the problem is now, this is what you guys don't get, is that there is no homosexual community left. There's no spaces that are just gay anymore. Every space is queer. Every venue in London that is something to do with gay is LGBTQIA. It is queer. And queer means straight girls, i.e. Bambi Thug, rancid Bambi Thug, who I talked about in this video, can identify as queer. And then there is literally no gay event or venue in existence. And that is true. So that's what I'm trying to say.
You do not represent me as a gay Irishman, Bambi Thug. Like, did they claim they did?
So I don't have an English accent. I have an Irish accent. So good attempt.
I miss the days when things were more homophobic. I miss the days of Freddie Mercury and David Bowie. Like, you know, people gave them shit about the gay stuff too.
All right, Governor. I'll just go down making a few TikToks about la-di-da the queer community. I don't sound like that. Good try. I mean, Northern Americans are always terrible at accents. I'm sorry.
And we're like grilling and chewing them out on live TV about the gay stuff. David Bowie recloseted himself at the height of the AIDS crisis.
David Bowie was most likely autogynephilic. Just saying.
The Overton window has shifted. You are now the conservative. You are now the boom. The youngs are taking it too far now. Okay, Grandpa, like, how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Okay, that's the first time that's ever happened to me. Life is so cruel. Nothing lasts forever. Oh, but yeah, I'm 30. I'm not that old. You know what? Never been happier. So F you. and stop putting on that cringe Cockney accent, which I don't have. And that's it. I'm sorry, Americans. And, you know, I'm very lucky that around 40% of my viewership is from the US. So love you guys. But you do tend to conflate Europeans with just all being the same. It's actually every country in Europe is just vastly different in terms of its culture and its language. So when people just kind of view it as all a bit of a mush, and when they view the UK and Ireland as like just the same thing, you're very wrong. So it really annoys me, tangent, but when people say like, oh my God, I'm going on vacation to Europe, it's like, you know, where in Europe? Anyway.
Like your whole thing just screams of someone who is used to being treated like the main character of the LGBT community and is like very scandalized that they're not anymore, and that instead of white cis gay guys, it's now like white non-binary goths.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Please let not it be white non-binary goths. I was never at the center of attention, if I'll let you know. I just want there to be some normalcy in gay people, and I'm going to keep speaking out on this at least until you stop blocking gay kids' puberties, okay? That's all I'm asking. And it's bitches like you, non-binary girls on T, who are like, oh my God, save trans kids. Trans kids deserve to grow up. Block gay kids' puberty. No, I'm not having it.
Who are like becoming more public-facing in the community. Like, stop complaining about young people being cooler than you and go gentrify something like you're supposed to.
Bambi Thug, rancid Bambi Thug, is older than me. Pretty sure she's 32. And this is, I've talked about her before. She said, I didn't come out till I was 28. Oh. Makes my blood boil, the ridiculousness of it. So I'm not talking about the younger people. I'm not talking about the younger people. What are you even holding? Like some gross... Is that like a blender full of piss? That's what it looks like. Just get ready, because this is another non-binary testosterone. Binary shit is literally just the new goth and emo, by then getting double mastectomies with no...
This is probably one of the most transphobic shit I have ever seen as a non-binary person. And it's... ugh. I mean, you're so obsessed with someone else's genitalia and what they do for their gender journey. I'm just gonna let you...
The only person's genitalia I'm obsessed with is my boyfriend's. Hate to break it to you. I have no interest in being anywhere near yours.
You know that probably the people that are having these that are getting gender-affirming care, like the ones you're saying, probably don't want nothing to do with you, bitch. So grow up.
I hope they want nothing to do with me. I'd be pretty alarmed if this person was at my door.
Stop being a snowflake. So who cares? Who cares that the non-binary people are getting gender-affirming care? They probably want nothing to do with you.
Girl, I'm not asking for us to be best friends. What I was trying to describe in that video is that you have vulnerable girls who have autism or have been sexually assaulted, who now think the answer is to escape their body and start identifying as not female. And that leads them getting their breasts cut off, which is body mutilation. And it's an issue. It's an issue.
So it doesn't really affect your life. So you're on here complaining, these people are like this, and it's so dystopian, and they're like goth people now.
It is dystopian. We're going to look back on this and be like, what the hell? But it does affect my life. Because like I said, this movement means that there's no homosexual spaces left. And this is part of the movement. And the wokeism is part of the movement. And the far left ideas are part of the movement. And this is one of them, that chopping off your breasts is somehow a celebration of truth and not a tragedy. And it's the same people who are influencing young gay boys that they're actually girls. And I have an invested interest in that. We did not progress as far as we are to then just say, oh, well, you know, we have our rights, people accept us. Why don't we just turn all the gay kids into women? No.
Ugh. Grow up. This is basically like the whole... this reminds me of the whole argument with trans children that...
She sounds like she can't breathe. She all right?
Conservatives are like, Oh, these little kids are getting surgeries. Ah. Oh, these people are getting, children are getting gender-affirming surgeries and they're mutilating our children.
Do you have any legitimate arguments against these claims? Then just be like, ooh, like, what is this? But you'll see that they just sensationalize and make fun and use inflammatory language and say you're transphobic without actually debating the actual arguments.
And then it turns out that these surgeries barely happen and there's laws in place to restrict them. So these people go up in arms for it anyway. This is what this video is giving me, that vibe of promoting.
Oh, I'm giving you the vibe. It doesn't matter if they're barely happening. If they're happening at all, it's totally wrong. And we have medical proof in the UK of that fact from the CAS report.
Hatred, for one, against non-binary people. And for two, misinformation. The misinformation being that these surgeries are trendy and meh. If these surgeries are so trendy, why aren't we seeing more people like this? Why aren't we seeing influencers doing this if it's so trendy?
Pretty sure you are. Is it not every other day? It's like, this is my voice, 5 days on T. Another YouTube channel. When I was in my teens, I came across these trans influencers documenting their transition. So there very much is. And it's not like everyone and their mom is transitioning, but you do have a minority of vulnerable people who are isolated, who have neurodivergency, who are being swept up into this cult. So yes, it's not every other person on the street. It's still a minority of people overall, but it deserves to be talked about because it's not fair that these people are just collateral damage.
It's not. It's scary as shit being a non-binary person in today's society. I should know because I'm non-binary. I mean, the walking out and living your life as you are with the threat of people attacking you physically, verbally, and being barred from businesses.
Barred from businesses, what? Because you have a shaved head and wear a rainbow thing that says love?
I mean, I can't visit a lot of countries because of my gender identity.
You can't go to a lot of countries. Any country you can't go to is just countries that people in general can't go to. You know, like Iran. You know, we don't be going there on holiday. No. You're not going to go to Italy or Germany and someone spot you as some non-binary freak and want to tear you down.
And because how I present. But it's people like you who make...
You know, having a shaved head is not a new concept. That doesn't automatically mean you're no longer a woman, even if you take testosterone.
all this uproar over little things, just gender-affirming care that does not affect you whatsoever, is what bothers me and is what's promoting that hatred. But I'm gonna end this video off at a high note and just let people know that don't listen to people like this because, honey, they're a waste of your time. Do what you feel is right for you and make that decision yourself. Don't let any other person influence you. That's all for me.
See how they learn how to speak in this cultish language? Don't listen to them. We love you. We're here for you. Cut off your breasts. Don't listen to the cis white gay guy. Cut off your breasts. If it's right for you, take the testosterone. Shave your head and then tell everyone that you can't walk outside for fear of being murdered. That's a really good lifestyle to have. We're all so happy. That was a lot. You know, guys, I collect all the videos people make of me. So I have a whole library. And there's another good one. There's another few that are very juicy. So I'll definitely do this again. And I'm so glad that you were here with me today. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see bonus uncut content from today, the populist movement who have for years not been listened to, 1,500 girls or more tortured, trafficked and coming in to our country illegally in a dinghy, the vast majority of them being young, single men from Afghanistan, Syria. Republican National Convention dubbed the Grindr Super Bowl. You can just see how many accounts there are.
Because you're a transphobe.
Honey.
It's not honey anymore, bitch.
What you sent me to? You sent me to Lady that video.
Wow. Please head on to my Substack, subscribe, connect with me on there. And with that being said, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.